It's the Wilk Report. I'm Michael Wilk, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio, with a review of Cobra Kai, Season 2, Episode 1, Mercy, Part 2. And this is pretty much picking up where we left off last season, where Cobra Kai had won its first All-State Valley Karate Tournament in 30 years after being banned for that long because of John Kreese's actions in the 80s. And Johnny, who is really not feeling too good about this because of the cost being too high, is moping in his office afterward, and in walks John Kreese, back from the dead. So, let's get down to it. This review is going to contain spoilers galore, so if you haven't seen it, then by all means turn this video off. Go watch it. It's free on YouTube Premium, and then you got to go behind a paywall to watch the rest of the season. Otherwise, stick around if you have seen it or if you don't care about spoilers. So let's go ahead and get started. So we pick up, like I said, right where Season 1 left off. Kreese comes back to congratulate Johnny on his victory, but Johnny is not really having it. He's still pissed about what was done to him back in the 80s when his sensei tried to kill him. He picks a fight. Kreese throws him into the mirror. Yeah, heck of a way to come back and say you're sorry. Not. But then, then Johnny basically shows that the old man didn't teach him everything he knows. And he manages to get him into a headlock, much the way that he did, that Kreese did to him 30 years before. But, Kreese is basically just there to talk, though. He wants to get back in with Johnny's good graces, but like I said, he's not having it. He gets him into a headlock, and that has him having a flashback to 35 years prior, where Kreese had him in a headlock after coming in second during the tournament. So, yeah, a lot of this is really kind of forcing him to confront his past and, realizing, look, I do not want to turn into this guy. And of course, they end up collapsed on the floor as the sprinklers go off to put out a fire that had gotten started when Johnny kicked the cigar out of Kreese's mouth and into a wastepaper basket. Meanwhile, Johnny's son is having a moment with Daniel to fix up a car. Then still later, Miguel's mom congratulates Johnny and Miguel, saying how proud she is of her son, but worries that she doesn't like the look he had on his face. And Johnny promises that Miguel is not going to turn out badly if he has anything to say about it. Samantha, Daniel's daughter, meanwhile, is kind of mopey about Miguel after the events in Season 1 and their breakup. She goes ahead and blocks him on Instagram, which has Miguel pretty depressed following the tournament. His friends try to comfort him. Hawk says he's pretty much got his pick of any girl in high school now, but yeah, obviously that's not working out too well. Later, Johnny meets up with Kreese in a diner where Kreese pretty much shows that he hasn't really learned anything in the last 30 years. He's been bouncing around, basically going from war zone to war zone, likening his absence to a cobra undergoing brumation, which is similar to hibernation, except the cobra stays awake. Johnny basically says, look, stay away from my students. I'm the one running Cobra Kai now. There's no room for two of us. And later he dresses down Hawk and Miguel for their behavior during the tournament, saying that fighting dirty and attacking the weak is for pussies, and he pledges that, he's going to retrain his students, and he explains to Miguel that he's still learning and that he never learned the difference between mercy and honor. And, it's a very poignant moment. Later, he meets up with his son in a hardware store because he and Daniel are looking for materials to fix a shelf, and Johnny just happened upon them, and he tries to get in and apologize to his son, but he's not having it. Later on, Daniel has a chat with Samantha to cheer her up over her breakup with Miguel. Points out that the reason he's starting up the dojo again is so they can fight Cobra Kai, but Samantha says, I don't want to fight Cobra Kai. They're my friends, or they used to be, and it's not really my thing. So later on, Daniel says that the best way to defeat Cobra Kai is to not fight them, because they're not their enemies. They're kids. They're people just like them, and he wants to show that there's another way, a better way. So this is pretty uplifting. Then Kreese shows up, basically to apologize for what he did to Johnny all those years ago, and to show him the second place trophy from back in 1984, that he's fixed it, and gives it back to him. Of course, this tactic works, and Johnny calls him back after Kreese makes to leave. So yeah, lots of stuff going on here that, like I said, it's really a lot to unpack here. I do have one complaint about this episode, though, and that it seems to have pretty much ignored or obliterated the ending from season 1, Mercy, where, there's some reconciliations going on. I mean, Johnny and Daniel had a reconciliation, and it's really kind of presented in season 2 opener as though it never happened. Likewise, there was a sort of reconciliation between Johnny and his son, but again, it's like it never happened. And I kind of realized that, maybe the writers kind of painted themselves into a corner and decided, okay, well, we'll have to cheat this. But it didn't really work for me. All right. So, other than that, it was a very good episode, though. I have to say, I've been looking forward to this since last year. Cobra Kai really, I think, lives up to the spirit of the original Karate Kid franchise from part 1, and I suspect at some point, if there's a season 3, we'll see maybe from part 4 and Hilary Swank's time as the one who followed Daniel LaRusso after the first 3 films. So who knows? But yeah, we're off to a pretty much a good start to season 2. Kreese is worming his way back into Johnny's good graces. Basically, he is looking for his own redemption. He sees that the world, in his opinion, has gotten weaker, more coddled, and he wants to use Cobra Kai to really kind of like bring back the style of, I guess you could call it tough love, that he brought to his dojo so many years ago. But like I said, Johnny's not really feeling it because, he's learned and grown since then, whereas Kreese doesn't appear to have learned anything. He spent so long on the battlefield that he never really left. And when he tried to come off the battlefield, the only thing he could do was try to train his students as though they were soldiers, which, is not... it's understandable, but it's not taking into account that civilians are not soldiers, okay? Karate is supposed to be about defense, not offense. And so you kind of see into the mentality. And I've met people, in fact, one of my previous roommates was an ex-Marine who, again, never left the battlefield and approaches life from the standpoint of everywhere is a battlefield, even your own home. And, just never lost that 1,000-yard stare. So, it's... So, the way Kreese is depicted here, played by Martin Kove, he is basically trying to find his own sort of redemption, but also maybe trying to prove to himself that his method wasn't a failure. Whereas Johnny actually is, he now has a much more nuanced approach to looking at the events of the original films. So, like I said, I thought it was a little bit of a cheat, ignoring the reconciliations that happened last season. Obviously, we were going to see things step up. And of course, as we saw last season, plenty of misunderstandings leading to, conflict, which, because people aren't, they're not talking to each other. They're not communicating in some ways. That's understandable. But, this is the kind of storytelling that we need to be seeing more of on television, where we show characters, we've been reintroduced to after like decades, and, showing how they've learned and grown and changed over time, and undergoing these kind of like heroes' journeys and redemption stories. We did not get this with STD on CBS in 2 seasons, which is just shallow writing that has nothing but contempt for the original material. But in this case, it's obvious that even more so than Jordan Peele's alleged revival of The Twilight Zone, and I say alleged for reasons I'll go into in my next review of that show. But, it's like they're trying, but they're not really trying. And here it's obvious that, there's great attention to continuing this story, but doing it in a way that actually respects the intelligence of the audience and actually tries to deal with some of the issues from the original trilogy, especially the first film, where, the question has been raised, maybe Johnny wasn't all that bad, and maybe Daniel wasn't all that good. And so, you pick up 35 years later where, one is washed up and trying to get back on his feet. The other is successful, but keeps finding himself tempted to really kind of pick up the rivalry when he really shouldn't be. So, all sorts of character evolution here. Very good writing. I'm looking forward to seeing the next episode, which I will be breaking down at least once a week, maybe twice, depending on my schedule. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, like I said, go watch it. I've tried to keep the spoilers down to a minimum, still finding my own balance there. But let me know what you think. Did you like this episode? Did you not like it? Why or why not? I want to hear from you. If you like what you've heard and you want to hear more, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to receive notifications whenever we upload new content. And if you want to help support the channel, keep the lights on, help us bring you more content, head over to our Patreon or Subscribestar page. We can't do this without you. Until next time, this is Michael Wilk for the Wilk Report, saying take care, good night, I'm out.